32. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I rise as the designee for the gentleman from Texas, and I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 32, printed in House Report number 119-232, offered by Mr. Perry of Pennsylvania.
Pursuant to Resolution 672, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Perry, and a member opposed will each control 5 minutes. The gentleman recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment fully defunds DOE's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, or the EERE. This amendment is offered because we simply cannot continue to fund the destruction, and that's what it is, the destruction of the U.S. energy grid to satisfy a climate cult. The FY 2024 minibus gave this office $3.5 billion, while the underlying bill cuts funding down to $1.96 billion. We need to defund it entirely. Like, why are we fooling around here, taking half of it? Like, this thing doesn't do anything good for anybody. This office's mission under the last administration was to, and I quote, equitably transition America to net zero greenhouse gas emissions economy-wide by no later than 2050. What does that mean, net zero? What that means is everything that you see, the clothing you're wearing, the car you're driving, the cell phone you use, that all disappears in America because we can't make any of that stuff because it requires emissions. Oh, but we'll still have it, so we'll just offshore that stuff to everybody else, including China. Brilliant plan. So if we look at wind and solar, it funds wind and solar, which are actively destroying the power grid. They are the least reliable sources of power and the most expensive. Nobody would use them and no one would produce them if they weren't subsidized by your tax dollars. EVs, it funds zero-emission vehicles that only the wealthy can afford, and supply chains dominated by China. It actively promotes divisive concepts like energy equity and environmental justice, which allocate tax dollars based on immutable characteristics. Are you serious? This is America? While we successfully ushered in the end of the Inflation Reduction Act, we got to continue because there's plenty more to do. Over 90% of the subsidies from this organization went to corporations that make over $1 billion per year. I'm going to tell you who's going to defend it, not me. People over there, some people over here, but not me. $1 billion per year. These subsidies could make wind and solar account for nearly 60% of U.S. electricity generation by 2050. People say, well, that's great. Isn't that good? Well, it's good if you don't care if you can't turn the lights on because the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining. We're going to have rolling brownouts and blackouts because that's what's going to happen. And like in California, Americans in the 21st century are going to become used to, we're going to normalize living in the 7th century instead. Of course, all this makes us wholly dependent on China for our power. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will reserve the balance.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania reserves for what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I seek time in opposition.
You are recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I share some of my distinguished colleagues concerned about EERE. But let me, for the record, lay some things out. EERE, and I'm a strong supporter of EERE, received over $16 billion from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, of which there are billions in unobligated balances remaining. So in other words, they got a ton of money in these big largesse bills that were passed by the last administration. $16 billion, and they can't spend it all. That's why in the House bill, we've reduced funding to EERE by $1.6 billion below the fiscal 2025 level. They had money they couldn't even get to spend. And again, I want to say, I am a strong, strong supporter of EERE. I've seen the work they do. Tremendous job, but they got all of that money in those largesse spending bills. This reduces EERE spending to levels since 2013. But I respectfully think my colleague's amendment goes too far in eliminating this program. Again, things that EERE does well, geothermal technologies, advanced manufacturing, and industrial efficiency improvements. So it also includes essential work on critical materials that will lay out the groundwork for technologies that will reduce our reliance on foreign supplies. So I think EERE is an issue that we all can support. The reductions are there. I think this strikes a very good balance, and for these reasons, I must respectfully oppose my colleague's motion. Thank you. Yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, President Trump won the election and requested that Congress slash the funding for this office. This amendment does exactly that and deals with this out-of-control agency. Historically, this office was responsible for some of the most egregious rules regulating the lives of Americans. Previous regulatory actions undertaken include air cleaners, fans and blowers, dehumidifiers, commercial clothes washers, conventional cooking tops. Who in the hell do these people think they are? Like, we're Americans. We ought to be able to choose whatever we want to, yet they tell us what we can have and what we can't have. I'm not sure what country you think you live in or what it should be, but it shouldn't be this. I still urge adoption of this amendment, and I yield the balance.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman